So here you have a QR code on the screen. It's a link to, can you hear me? It's a link to a pad where you can ask your question. This, this presentation is a follow-up of what I did this morning. And the name is Millions of Order, but it goes behind that. The goal was to prove people that we can handle huge load and manage a lot of data. So when we say millions of orders, there are two things to consider. There is the fact that we store a very big amount of data and we want to work on it, and the fact that we are able to sustain people creating those orders or people processing those orders. And there is something that maybe was not very clear this morning, is that when I launched my demo this morning with 10,000 users, it means that those users are using the system all at the same time. It's not just that we created 10,000 users in a database, because that's too easy. So we use actually Locust to simulate those users. And there is a talk of Nicolas Saint-Lay, I don't know when it is, but tomorrow, about how to set up this kind of tool if you want to benchmark your own Odoo. So I won't go into much detail about Locust itself. So what I want to do is, let's go back here, browse a few points, and I will show you some stuff, and then I will answer your question. So I told you that if you want to use Odoo with a lot of data, you just need to create a database, feed it, and then use it, because it's supposed to work out of the box like this. But I told you also this morning that in practice, maybe you will need to do some tweak, and we will see what approach we have when we have to manage this amount of data. So the first thing I want to explain is that we used to have a populate tool in Odoo, and this populate tool was able to create fake data in the database, but it was slow because the tool that we had before was creating from the Python code, so it was calling create and create to create a lot of records, which is okay if you have a few thousands of records. But if you really want to generate millions and millions of them, then it takes too much time, because you would have to wait a few days to fill everything. So the new version of the populate tool that we have now is one that is using everything is done in pure SQL. So what we do, we copy current record and we duplicate them, but in a smart way. We don't take all the table and duplicate them, because there is relationship between them, and maybe there are fields that we want to change, and there are fields that we want to copy. If we copy a sales order, of course we want to copy the lines of the sales order. So the new populate tool use it's the same command as before, so it's Odoo bin populate. I will show you. So, okay. I'm not sure. Okay, wait. So we have a subcommand populate. Wait, I need to do. No. Yeah. Okay, that's the reason I want the tmix configuration to. Okay, wait. Because I'm not using my terminal, because my terminal has very small letters, and I want you to be able to read. So let's take this. Oui. And this should work, right? populate. Okay. Okay. So the syntax of the new populate command. Okay. I think okay. You have it here. Okay. So the syntax of the new command. You give the models that you want to duplicate, and then you give an amount that you want. So here we put, I think, 10 millions or 1 million, and it will do 1 million what's already present in the database. So if you have already 1,000 order, it will give you a billion, because it takes what's existing in the database and duplicate it. And it make it in a smart way. So if you have date, we vary the date. If you have one too many, we copy them, etc. And by doing that, I was able, and I won't do it now because it takes 40 minutes, but I was able to populate in, let's say, 40 minutes, I think, the database that I showed this morning. And you see here, it's the group by month of the sales order that I generated. Okay? So this is... My database doesn't work? Okay. Now it works. Alors, another tool that we used is the profiler. So, of course, when we did this experiment, there were some screens that were slow. And if you know, in Odoo, we have in the debug tool here, there is a profile tool here. You can start it. Oh, I need to ask Fabien to allow me, but you can enable it and you do some stuff. For example, you click on a screen, you click on a button, and then you come back and you get a profile of what you did. And usually you can see there if it's slow. Is it slow because of Python code? So you will see all the stack frame of the Python code. Or is it slow because there is SQL query? And you will see the SQL query at the bottom. So then you can decide if it's a problem more related to the database or to the code. And then you investigate and you see what you have to do. I think most of the problem we have, it's more often database problem than Python code. But it can happen that Python code is a problem. Do you think I can do it, Fabien? We will see. Up. But anyway, I can go and run bot and show you. Or maybe this one. Okay, so I go somewhere, I enable the debug mode, and I will enable it, do something, okay. I hope it works this time. Ah, voilà, it works. So I do something, so I go there, I click there, and then I can see my record. Oops. Oops. Voilà, here. The one, I think it was Ceramid. So you can see all the query that were done. So maybe this one, and you open this, and you get, you see, you get all the Python calls, so the stack frame, and at the bottom, you can see the SQL query that are done. And if you see that there is a wide SQL query, maybe that's a problem. Then another tool that you can use is PG activity. So you go on the server. I will do it now. And you see, I will start a new one. Okay, I will show you in my small terminal. Voilà. Here you can see what's happening on the database. So you do load testing or even on a real database, and you can see the queries that takes a lot of time. And here at the top we see that searching, but the guy is searching 2 letters, a name with 2 letters, and it takes 18 seconds to do the search. So by analyzing what's happening in real time, you can locate and find, you know, pain point, not pain point, but a performance issue, and you work, and then you decide. You have to understand where does in the code this query is done. So one way of doing that, you go there and you kill it. Up. And when you kill a query, the Python code will receive an exception. So you can check in the log and see the exception and see, oh, that query was executed from this place in the code. So that's another useful tool. And then you have to understand that we live in a universe where actually log n, in maths it's not correct, but in the real world it's mostly correct. When you have log n of anything, it's less than 64, because 2 to the power of 64 is huge. Maybe it's 180. So when you have algorithm and you are able to do log n of something, it's like a constant. It won't be more than 128 or 64. So usually when you have problems in the code, it's because you have something that is not log n, that is n square or exponential. So it's very important to understand the complexity, and when you are able to bring those back to either n or log n, then you've won. And that's what index do. So when you find slow queries in your database and you add an index, what it does, it's taking an operation that would look in every item of the table, and because of the tree, you only have to traverse log n items. So usually creating an index is the solution, you know, it's the panacea for not everything, but a lot of things. And to find those index, what you would do, you would take the query that you locate that is slow, and then you run it in PSQL manually, and you use explain to ask Postgres how will it execute this query, and then you analyze and you see, it maybe do a sex scan. A sex scan is, it has to go to the whole table, and there maybe there was a criteria and I could create an index. And I told you this morning that we have a support team dedicated to performance, and one of the thing they do the most is locating sometimes missing index and creating the right index, and it changed the life once you have the right index in your database. And then the last thing that you can do is instrument your code. So you would add, sometimes you have things that are difficult to find, so you have to instrument your code to locate it and then raise an exception or log a stack trace. So for example, last week when we were deploying this, we had a very subtle bug where at some point Odoo was allocating a lot of memory. But then we didn't know where it was coming from. We could see a query, a SQL query on REST partner that was reading like all the partners of the database. And at first we were thinking maybe there is a bug in Odoo, and somebody in some part of the business code reads all the partner for wrong reason. But we didn't find anything. And then I instrumented the code of the RPC layer of Odoo to see if somebody outside of Odoo was doing this query. And we realized, oh yes, it's coming from outside. And then we realized actually in the locus tool that we were using, we made a mistake, and one of the operations that we programmed was reading all the partners. So to locate this kind of issue, you have to usually add hooks in your code to find where the real issue is, and then once you find it, you close it. So that's the main tool that you use to improve the performance. So what I want to say is that it's critical for you if you make project to be able to do that. And we offer consultant services, so you can ask people to help you. But if you ask people to help you to find a solution, it's like when they give you a fish. It's a bad practice. So if one day you work with people from Odoo, you have to work with them to learn the skills. You have to learn the skill by yourself and becoming good at improving performance, because it's a key skill. And I think in the ecosystem, and even among my developers, this skill is lacking. And I don't understand why, because it's a fun game to locate those performance bottleneck and then find an issue. It's very rewarding. Okay, let's go to the question. Alors, how to import big amount? Alors, if you want to import big amount, it will be slow, because when we do the populate, we duplicate what's already in the database. So we know that it's correct and we can duplicate it. But if you import, it will go through the Python layer and it will be as fast as creating them. So it can take, I think when we use the old populate and we wanted to do millions, it would take like 1 day to import millions of records, 1 or 2 days. There's nothing you can do about it except maybe importing in SQL. But if you do that, you have to make sure that all the compute fields are correctly done. With the new command, is it changed? It's changed a bit. So we changed the sequence number, we changed the name for the partner, we changed the date, but that's pretty much it. So if you really want to have nice data, you have to make sure that the demo data that you use is already wide and it covers all the use case. That's a limitation, and internally we had some discussion about how the new populate is worse than the one before, because it doesn't encompass all the value. Yeah, it's true, so it has its shortcomings, but it's way much faster. And what we realized is that the previous populate command, nobody was using it to create a lot of data because it was too slow. So that's why we choose to replace it. The best way to use thread in Odoo process, no, I don't recommend to use thread, because what you should do instead of thread is split the job and have different cron jobs that do the job. That's what we do at odoo.com. We split and then we do it in different jobs. Because you can be killed. If you launch thread, Odoo doesn't know that you launch a thread and you might be killed. And so it's not a good practice. It's better to split your job and do it with, you can use trigger, you can use cron to do that. And it's equivalent, because also when you use thread, at the moment in Python, we still have the GIL. So it's more limited. When you do multiple cron, you can launch multiple workers, and those workers can really use a CPU. So that's for the thread question. Well, I was creating index and solving the algorithm issue. So the complexity of your code. That's the two main approach to improve the performance. If you delete, deleting is very important. Delete, people don't test it that much, but delete can be very slow because you have all those foreign keys. So the solution is the same, adding an index to take care of those foreign keys. For example, deleting a user on odoo.com was like ages. And then we added the right index, and now it's instant. But it was like, I don't know, 1 hour to delete one user or something like that. Improve my performance on Odoo SH. For distributed companies, we don't have a solution yet. Because, and we have the problem at Odoo, our server are in France, and we have people working from Australia, and yeah, they have a lag. And I don't think there is an easy solution. You can try to replicate, synchronize, but you are opening a new can of worms by doing that. So there is no easy solution to that problem. When you profile, of course, it has an impact, because when you execute the code under profile, it's slower, because Python, the profiling is done in Python, so we log everything that's happening. So it might be a little slower than if you do without profile. So the time you cannot trust the time that you have under profile. But you can trust the stack trace and follow what's happening. Index creation. Yeah, you can add index true in your code, or you can do it in PSQL. I know that Nicolas did a few presentations on how to optimize. I don't know if we have a smart class, but yes, it would be welcome. You're right, if we don't have a smart class about it, we should do it. Yeah, from the UI, you can delete many records, but you have to make sure that when you click on the list view, you click select all. When you click select all, you don't have the list of all IDs. You give the domain, and then you can execute something on a lot of records. But you are limited to the time. Usually, on the SaaS, we would kill a request if it takes too much time, so you are limited with that time. If you cannot do it like this, you can do it from the shell, for example. Or you can do it by batch. No, alors, yes, we might support old version, but one of the answers I say to the team is, if they are running an old version and it's faster in the new one, the answer is upgrade. Because we prefer to improve the future than continue. But if the fix is easy, maybe they will backport it. Is a lot of small query. I think I have to stop. Do I have 5 minutes? Okay. So when you have a lot of small query that are very optimized, yeah, that's more difficult. Then you have to ask yourself, why do you have so many small queries? And it's much more difficult to locate in PG activity or in the log when you have a lot of small queries. We had a problem with Discuss recently. We had a performance issue. It was coming from Discuss, and the queries were very quick, but there was a lot of them. So we changed the approach to, it was the notification system to tell other people that you are online. And we totally changed the way it works to solve the issue. So those ones are more complex. And if you have the problem in stock, inventory, I recommend you to go to the end of this hall, and there is a room, meet the developers, and when we might look at your problem. Yes, that was a suggestion. Should we keep the old populate so that we combine both approach? But Fabien didn't want to keep it. They say, oh, it's useless. Let's remove this code and only have one version. So I know that some people in the team are not happy about it because they wanted to use the old one. So we kept the code somewhere else. I think we push it elsewhere so that we keep it, but we will see. Yeah, so to import, if it's just zip code, maybe I would risk it to do it in pure SQL. But if you do it with the ORM, of course, it will take some time. I don't think it will take days, but maybe 1 hour or something like that. Alors, serialization error. When you have a serialization error, it means that two transactions were working on the same records, and you have to ask your question, why does it happen? Maybe there is a design problem. Let's take an example. You want to log the number of people who visit a page. One way to do it would be, I increment a value on the record every time somebody visits the page. It's a wrong approach. You better have an approach where you append stuff, because appending never conflicts. So you append stuff, and then you compute the sum from time to time, or you compute the sum. So when you have a lot of serialization error, usually you have to take a different approach. There is no quick and easy solution. Another solution we did for website visit, for example, we didn't do that. We increment a counter, but we say, okay, if we miss a visitor, it's not a big issue. So when there is a serialization error, in this case, we just ignore it. But for other use case, when it's important, we prefer to append stuff, create new record, so that there is no conflict, and then after we merge them. how do you configure? How do you configure the Odoo server? We didn't configure that much. We tweak a bit the database for the bottleneck we observe, but otherwise Odoo is running as Odoo because Odoo is already distributed, and I don't think we just fine-tune the memory limits, the time limits, this kind of stuff, but mostly it's Odoo out of the box. C'est encore? But I think we are at the end of the question, if you have other questions. So don't hesitate to come to me, ask further questions, and go to the developer. I was really surprised after my presentation that many people came and say, oh, I have a performance issue. And they were explaining me their use case, and I cannot solve everything on the spot. So I told them, go there, sit with our developers, and we will figure out a solution. Thank you for your attention.